Ready?
After I scratch my head. No, it hits. Okay.
Okay.
I'm done goofing off almost.
God. Primping. Preening.
Pimping. Supposed to be pimping.
Pimping. Ready?
No.
Is the ritualistic preparing done? Okay. Ready?
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
Okay, episode 992.
Woohoo!
On our way to 1,000 videos, which is, it's insignificant, but it's significant at the same time.
Okay.
Which is profound, to say the least. Okay, today we're going to talk about this article that popped up, a bunch of data in it. Rental market trends in the U.S.
Okay.
Is rent going up? Okay, that was the headline.
Okay, so if you watched episode 991, you were invited to put in the comments which rental market went down. They surveyed 400 rental markets, 399 went up, one went down. Which one did you pick?
March over March, just for 1 year.
Just for
last
1 year. Which one?
After we were told last year that rents would crash too with housing. Rents would crash too. It went up at 399 in the 400 market. So they were close. One market, it crashed an entire 0.9%. You're going to find...
So which is less than 1%?
Less than 1%.
Okay.
Okay. You're going to find out in this video which was that one market.
Yes.
That absolutely, completely crashed 0.9% while every other market went up.
Right.
And none were zero. They were all up or down. It was pretty sad. Okay. Historically, let's talk about rent. Has it ever really gone down?
Well, not exactly. So, okay. Look, rents go up and down depending on what the market's doing, but overall rents over the long period of time go up. They go up partly because of the CPI. And remember, that 40% of the CPI is based on housing. So because, prices for everything have gone up, right? Housing goes up, and that's kind of the short story.
Rent, there's a couple things that have outpaced CPI. Technology and things like that have gone up less than the CPI.
Right.
Okay. And like college tuition and rents have gone up faster than the CPI.
Right.
The other thing is that wage increases beat the CPI, and that's a normal market forces.
Right. So look, when there are wage increases, that also means that rents will go up. So that rents go up for a number of reasons. One is just because the market will bear it. So when wages go up, the market bears more in rent. And then the other reason is, with inflation, the price of everything goes up. So landlords raise the rent because they're passing on that cost to the tenant.
Okay, we have a bunch of data and some slides, but before data and slides. But before they do that, I want to touch on a point of something that happened a few years ago. This is basic economics. You don't have to agree. Somebody had said, because I think it was somebody in California had said, it was a county or the state or somebody had proposed that they were going to give everybody an additional $1,000 a month forever, like a basic
universal income,
universal UBI. And so everyone's going to get $1,000 a month UBI, whether you're rich or poor, but it was really going to help the poor people because their percentage income would go up quite a bit. And I was having a conversation on one of these, in the news, they put the newspaper article and then you can comment on it. And I basically said, oh, this is great because I own X amount of rental houses and I'm going to raise my rents $200 on every one. And so I'm going to get my 1,000 plus I'm going to get 200 for all of those houses and I'm going to make a ton of money. And they were like, whoa, you can't do that. And I was like, sure, yeah, I absolutely can. They will gladly pay it because they still have $800 extra to pay for other stuff. And if they don't want to pay for the rent increase, there's ever since all these other people got $1,000, there's somebody else who's going to be willing to pay it because all of a sudden everybody has money, so everybody's less price sensitive. And what the thing they didn't understand is this: if you give everyone $1,000, right? Let's make it a big number. Let's say that they just printed and gave everyone $1 million, and you got $1 million, and you go, you know what? I'm going to go buy $1 million house, and you go down to this house you've always wanted. It's the beautiful home. It's in a guard-gated neighborhood. It overlooks the city. It's like perfect. It's everything you've ever wanted. It's $1 million exactly. And you go on and you go, hey, I see the house for sale. I recently came into $1 million, and I would just like to pay cash because I'm a cash buyer. Maybe I'll offer $950 since I'm a cash buyer. I can get away with, but I'll just pay you the $1 million. They go, oh, well, we're selling it for $1.8 million, and but you just sold it last year for $1 million. Yeah, but now everybody in the world's got $1 million, so everyone wants to buy my house. Everyone can afford to buy it. So I've had people now say they'll pay 1.8, and you're like, well, that's not fair. That's called inflation. That's how it works. You have too many dollars. It's not like if you gave everyone $1,000 in California, they could magically go out and buy more stuff. That restaurant they want to go to, they won't get in because there won't be enough capacity to serve the 500 people a day more that want to go eat at that restaurant, right? It's not like they can go to the store and magically buy avocados that have all been bought because a bunch of people have decided they like avocados. They'll be gone. Like literally, you won't be able to spend the money, right, Juana? And then what'll happen naturally when there's money chasing goods and services, and then the goods and services start to disappear, what producers and sellers of goods and services do?
They raise the prices, which is what happened during the pandemic. Remember that? I mean, we all sat there in our pajamas and kept ordering stuff whether we needed it or not off of Amazon. And so we did get into that position where you had too many people chasing too few goods and services. And that's what got us in this position. We had people purchasing, and we had, to Todd's point, everybody got money from the government. And so that's how we got here with inflation being what it is. It didn't negatively impact jobs from that perspective because, we do have more jobs available than we have people to fill them. But inflation is a very real thing, and inflation is the biggest thief. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom far more than it hurts anybody else. And that's kind of what Todd's point was, that people who now have this money who didn't have it before still can't buy anything, and if anything, their purchasing power has been further diminished.
Exactly. Okay, here's the first thing from the article. Asking rents increased 0.5% February to March, according to Zillow's rental report for March 2023. What's an asking rent?
So it's just like an asking price for purchasing any other good or service, right? This is what the list price is. Now, what people are willing to pay, that may be a different story. Sometimes people are willing to pay that amount, sometimes less, sometimes more. It all depends on what the market will bear.
But we do know that in 399 market rents did go up.
They
so
sure did.
Clearly people can see this in aggregate.
Right, and especially with vacancy rates being 5%, it's not like tenants have a whole lot of choices. I mean, you pay the asking or better, or you're not getting in because there's nothing really available for rent.
Yeah, like you're a landlord and you just rented your house for $1,900 for a year, and the tenant says you're moving out, and you decide to go see what homes in the neighborhood are renting for, and there's nothing available. Mm-hmm. And you find out that the last 3 homes that rented were on the market for 3 days, 2 days, and 1 day. And one got $1,950 and 2 got $1,975. And you go, I'll just try 2,000, right? There's nothing there. And 2 days later, somebody calls you and gives you 1,000.
Right.
Or 2,000.
Right. And that does happen. So it's not that uncommon if you think about it when the rent, kind of to Todd's point, is maybe $1,975 and there are multiple applicants, for the applicants to say, you know what, I'll pay you $2,000 or $2,050 because I really want the place. And all things being equal, everybody's got an 800 credit score, everybody's got a great job, great money, great everything. As a landlord, what are you going to do when somebody says, I'm equal to everybody else, but this is what sets me apart is I'm willing to pay you a few dollars more? Chances are that landlord's going to go, okay, that's a good idea. I like that.
Didn't you have a property a few years ago where somebody literally paid you $200 over asking?
Yes.
Because it was so competitive and there were so few homes available.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I actually had, I think I had 7 applicants, and 3 of them offered to pay over asking, and where we ended up was $200 more.
And it was market rent. It wasn't lowball just to get it rented quickly.
No.
Okay.
It was we were the highest priced in the neighborhood in the first place.
Okay. If you'd like data, keep watching. We have some really cool data in here. We're going to get to which market was the one that declined in a bit. Okay. Here's the next slide. There's a bunch of stuff in here we're going to talk about. More than 35% of households in the U.S. rent homes, according to 2017-2021 data from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it's more expensive than ever to do so. You wouldn't have known this could have been put in an article if you watched the Crash Bro videos a year ago, because it was all going to collapse. Rents were going to collapse. It was, rents and home prices and everything. Now, the high cost of rent derives from a variety of factors, including inflation. Right now, it's the number one thing causing rents to go up, right? Mm-hmm. Higher costs across the board, they get passed on to...
Right.
They just get passed on.
Right. Like I said, 40% of the CPI comes from rent. Landlords do pay attention to inflation, and as their costs go up, they pass those costs on to the tenants. And then, of course, it's what the market will bear.
Well, landlords they just care about getting as much money as they can get. So they're just going to try to peg the biggest number. They don't go, well, there was 6% inflation, I'll raise my rent 6%.
No.
They look more at like what's actually happening in the subdivision they have the house.
Oh, exactly. So, so what a landlord will do is that they'll look at what's happening in their little pocket of the world, and they'll say, okay, there were 10 properties that leased in the last 3 months, and they leased in, 1 day, 3 day, 38 days. And, where were they priced? How do they compare in quality to me? What's on the market? So if you want to live in my neighborhood and there's nothing on the market, then I can probably ask a premium because I can see that my neighborhood is desirable because everything else rented very quickly. So all those things kind of factor in when landlords are pricing properties.
Let's say 13, 14 years ago, you had a strategy in Las Vegas to buy 40 rental houses, and you bought them all. Mm-hmm. But to diversify, you decided you didn't want to like buy them all in Summerlin or all in Green Valley Ranch or all in the Northwest, because you were afraid of having just areas that wouldn't maybe appreciate as fast or whatever. So you just spread them out over the valley, just bought them all over the place, right?
Okay.
You probably, every single one of them would be more in rent. Like, it's not like, it's not like for rents, it's not like some areas the rents are the same 15 years later.
No, not at all. I mean, rents are seldom the same year to year.
Okay, even in lower area,
right.
areas,
right.
high income areas.
So here's the thing. Most landlords who do this as professionally as they can, even in down years, they will still raise the rent, even if it's a nominal amount. And here's why. So let's say the rent is $2,000 a month. And let's say that rents are actually down, that there's a house down the street that rented for $1,950. And maybe there's another house, a couple blocks over, and that one rented for $1,925. And you're currently collecting $2,000 a month. You might still raise the rent, maybe just $25 a month. And you'd say, well, why would you do that? Because aren't they going to move? No, they're not going to move. It's too expensive to move. They're not going to move over a few bucks. But what you want is you want to be able to kind of anticipate where rents will be going, so that next year when you're doing that rent, that lease renewal, and rents have gone up 10%, you're not having to raise the rent 10% on them. You can kind of mitigate that. So you want to do this kind of sort of dollar cost averaging, right?
Right, rent cost averaging.
Right, so this rent cost averaging over time, so that you can keep your tenants in place. So maybe you raise it 25 this year when rents are down, and maybe you raise it 100 next year when rents are up, and you kind of play this game where over time you're not getting substantially less than the market rent, and you keep your property rented the whole time, hopefully the same people, so that you don't have turnover, you don't lose rent with the property being vacant, you don't have to do major renovations like, completely paint the inside or completely refloor it or something like that, because you've got a tenant in there and life is good. So those are things that landlords who do this professionally keep in mind.
Something that, demographically has happened. In the 80s, a lot of people would graduate college, get married, and go form a household.
Yes.
They would go out and buy a house. That was like a common thing,
yep.
right? Today, however, people are waiting longer to get married, but they still want to form a household. So there is a trend, more demand to live alone. So now instead of two people getting together to buy one house, you have two people who both get jobs, and then they each go try to find something. So you actually, in some ways, this idea, people putting off the decision to cohabitate or form a family unit, they're out there trying to buy. And we've seen a lot of people, single people that were not married, that were out there trying to buy their condo or small house or something.
Right.
And that just increase demand, because we know we're 6-7 million housing units short compared to housing formations. Right.
So, to Todd's point, before you had two people going out to buy one house, now you've got two people going out to buy two houses. So that does increase, this issue of being short housing units. Now we do know that it depends on who you listen to as far as how many housing units we're short, but everybody agrees that we are short housing units.
I've heard anywhere from 3.5 to 7 point something.
Short. Yeah, I heard anywhere from 1.7 to 7 point something. So yes, it just depends on who you're listening to and how they're looking at the data.
The price of asking rents increased by 0.5% for February and March, the second monthly increase in September. According to real estate website Zillow rental report for March 2023, the previous month-over-month increase in February is 0.3%. Before you poo-poo 0.5%, if that happened every month, it'd be 6%. Okay?
Which is actually pretty typical. When you're looking at year over year, that's basically what rents go up, and that's pretty close to what residential real estate appreciates at.
Okay. The March 2023 increase is slightly lower than typical March increase of 0.6%, average over data from 2016 to 2019, according to Zillow. Now, it is a hotter year. It's like a hot month. It's just like rents tend to go up just like prices go up, and then they tend to drop in the fall.
Right. So we've talked about this before, and you're going, well, why would rents do that? And we've talked about this because it seems that most people tend to move in the spring and early summer. So that's when leases tend to renew. Because remember, rents go up at lease renewal, usually not in the middle of a lease. So because of that, you've got usually about a year that your rent stays the same.
Okay. Of the 400 housing markets that they checked, these are the four worst. The four worst performing.
Okay, can we talk about the four best ones first?
No, these actually are the six. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't look at those.
Okay.
Do you know what they are?
No, not off the top of my head.
No. We're just going to do the worst ones. We don't have time. We're running out of time.
Okay.
These are them. Put them up right now. Vegas was the worst.
So if you guessed Vegas on the last video, woohoo for you.
Now,
good job.
We think this is Las Vegas, Nevada. I do not think this is Las Vegas, New Mexico.
I'm assuming that it is Las Vegas, Nevada, because we are the famous Las Vegas.
Now, remember, this is year over year because we were in the top 5 last year at this time. You go back and watch our rental video that we did. I think it was the Zumper data. We were one of the top 5. Who else was in the top 5 last year that's in here? Phoenix and Austin were in it, and I think it was Miami and some other place were in it. So Phoenix is only up 0.9%, but it was up a ton the year before, and Austin was up like a ridiculous amount. So remember, Salt Lake City, San Francisco, they're up, but these were the worst. These were the worst 6 markets. That means 394 markets had more than basically 3% or more appreciation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is how terrible it is to be.
Okay, and that doesn't mean that every house went down whatever percentage this is.
Yeah.
It just means that when they looked at it in aggregate, that's what it looked like.
Right. And it could be that more smaller houses turned over and then they repriced those, so it maybe skews it. Some of these may be higher because more higher, some bunch of $1 million homes got rented and then were added to the inventory.
Right.
So we have to be careful with these numbers, and you never know how they grab them. Zillow's pulling from the MLS.
Yeah, so anecdotally speaking, everybody whose lease I've renewed in the last few months, they all got rent increases.
They all did?
They all did.
Sorry. Sorry about that if you're renting from us and you watch your video, but it's market forces. But we do have a nice house.
We do.
Everybody loves our houses. The houses are fantastic. They're the best houses. All the other houses are total disasters. They're terrible. We have the absolute best houses. People, they tell us all the time how great our houses are. Okay. All right. Now, here's another chart that I thought was very interesting. I went in and pulled this chart, and it's a slidey chart. It goes up and down. You have to like get to the point. These are all the L's. Like these are a bunch of the L's. And it's rent to income ratio by metro area. Now, if you go down the bottom, you see Los Angeles, 50%. Median rents are 50% of your median income.
Right. And this is what I was talking about, that most of the time your rent is your most expensive, is your highest expense, and most of the time it's about 40%, but LA it's 50%.
Okay. Lakeland, Florida was 41%. Las Cruces, New Mexico, 43%. What the hell?
Right.
You know where Las Cruces is? It's like halfway between Albuquerque and El Paso.
So according to the government, if you're spending more than 1/3 of your income on your housing, then that is a hardship for you.
A hardship. Okay. Now, when you look at those numbers and then you look at Las Vegas, 36%, you think, oh, but it's so much more expensive, because I'm just looking up and down the column on the right to all those other numbers. 36%. Remember, we're a big city with a lot of opportunity for jobs and entertainment and things to do. 36%. When you compare these other lower places, okay, so where would you rather live? Las Vegas or Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Now, if you're Amish, you're not watching this. So we could say we want Amish. They're probably not watching this, okay? We don't have a lot of Amish viewers. Lansing, Michigan, maybe. Lawrence, Kansas, it's college town. Lawton, Oklahoma. Lexington, Kentucky. Lexington's not a bad town. It's pretty cheap to live in Lexington. Lincoln, Nebraska, college town, decent sized city. Little Rock, Arkansas. I mean, it's Arkansas, right? Longview, Texas. Nothing wrong with Texas. Louisville, Kentucky. So, when you look at the cities, obviously what people would consider to be, if you gave people the rank these cities, where would you want to live? I'm betting that if you took 100 people and said rank the cities, Las Vegas is almost in everybody's top 3. People aren't going to go, oh, wow, Lawton, Oklahoma? That's my number 1. Right next to, I can't decide between Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Lawton, Oklahoma. Which one? And if you're watching from those cities,
we apologize.
We apologize, okay? But I'm just pointing out that our rent-to-income ratio here is not out of line. It's not really horrible. 36% is pretty reasonable.
Right.
So it's not like we're overpriced that rents are going to collapse.
Right. So, look, rents in Vegas, while, depending on where you are on the spectrum, are on the high side. But again, they're on the high side for maybe what you're looking to rent. It's not necessarily that rents are high, but rents are high in light of what you want to rent. You could rent something that is in a different neighborhood or is a smaller house or whatever, and then that would be more affordable. But in light of what you want to rent, rents might be high.
Okay. This last chart here, it tells a very interesting tale. Now, it only goes from 2012. It does not go very, super long term, but it's basically called the last decade, 2012, 2022. It was also included in the article. Rental versus owned home vacancies. Okay, so the green one on top are the rental vacancy rate. 2012, it was about 9%. And then you can see it's down to below 6%. That is effectively zero.
Right.
5% is what's known as the fully rented, because 5% is the average amount of time when a tenant moves out that it takes to because the way they do this is they count by days a year it was actually occupied. So let's say you have a tenant who moves out and they move out at the end of the month, right? And the next person says, hey, I'm moving in, but I can't move in till the 12th.
Well, so generally what happens is your outgoing tenant moves out at the end of the month. And then the first week of the month, you're showing the property and you get a tenant. You get a tenant in the first week. But that tenant says, hey, I've already paid my rent at my other place, so I'll take your place starting with the 1st of next month. So they'll sign the lease and do all that, but
put the deposit down.
And put the deposit down, but they're not going to pay rent in both places for that month. So it looks like that place might be vacant for longer than it actually is, because there's no one living there for that month, but in essence, it has been rented.
It's full. It's basically fully, because there is some turnover time.
Right.
And if you did that on every property, you would have an 8.5%, which if you go back to 2012 was about what it was, 8.5, which is probably what was happening. Somebody would move out and a month later somebody would move in.
Right.
This is really fast. Like you have people literally saying, I'll just take it in 2 weeks. Like, or the example we gave.
Right.
And then the blue one on it is owned home vacancy rate. This is also substantial because people who have, the normal long term is 2% of all homes are vacant. And they're vacant because people have just moved out. They're just like, they went through a bad relationship and they just left. And then the other person said, well, I'm not going to stay here and pay the house. And they leave too. Like people just leave, right?
Right. You know, people leave, people die, people go into assisted living, you know, whatever. I mean, life happens.
When it's been for the last 2 years, you can see in 2020 it went below 1%. It's been below 1%. This is really the lowest it's ever been. This number actually has been measured since I think 1957 in the census they started measuring this. It's never, ever, ever been this low. People are in their houses. They're not going anywhere. And if they're in their houses, they're not getting foreclosed because they need some place to live. And the other reason they're staying put in their houses is because their payment is super cheap. Why is their payment super cheap?
Because most people have a sub 3% mortgage.
Yeah.
The highest.
Or over, the number was about 56% of all houses either are free and clear or below 3%. So they're either paying nothing or an extremely low amount, over half of all houses. So they're not going. They don't have to go. They can weather a lot of job losses. You know, oh, the recession, Todd. The recession, they're going to be forced to sell. You know who's forced to sell? A new home builder that builds a house. He's forced to sell. He's got to sell it. He can't keep it. He can't just keep it sitting there. He's forced to sell it to somebody, right? That's why he built it, to sell it. Nobody's forced to sell. We did a foreclosure report a couple of days. It was a joke. It's literally the lowest number of foreclosure. We have like one foreclosure every 3 days in Las Vegas, but still they're doing videos talking about how foreclosures are, you know, whatever. And we literally have no foreclosures. There's almost none.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. Final thoughts on this whole thing with rents have gone up. We were told a year ago that rents would go down. They didn't go down. I don't foresee, as long as we have any inflation, I don't see rents going down. As long as people are working, rents aren't going to go down. It'll be interesting next year to see if I would venture to guess Las Vegas will not be in the negative column. I would honestly, if I had to guess in the next year, conservatively, I would say I'd be very shocked if 390 of the 400 markets in the U.S. had higher rent year over year. If there were 10 of 400 markets that had, no matter where you are, I would bet your market average rents are more a year from now.
Yeah, I think that's an easy bet.
And that didn't happen in the housing crash. In the housing crash, a lot of people got rent deals, and home prices declined for a couple of years. The last time, actually, I think it's the only time historically rents ever went down. If you look at the graph of rents, they went up every year except for like 8, 9, and 10. They were the 3 years rents went down, and after that they went back up again.
Right. So what did you think? Did you get anything out of this? What did you like? Give us some ideas for some negative titles for videos and some ideas for what videos you'd like us to make. We appreciate all that. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when the next video comes out, especially as we march towards 1,000. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate the comments. Please share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.